The past 6 months have been an absolute roller coaster of a ride. I closed down my barbershop of 5 years, completely changed industries, flew overseas twice, and got a job that I wasn't even qualified for on paper. I fell flat on my face from burnout, delivery hell, and financial obligations. Now I'm crawling my way through with more clarity, more grit, and way less haircuts. This isn't just a recap, it's a wake-up call. And if you've ever found yourself in a position where you're questioning everything, who you are, what you do, and why you even do it in the first place, this one is for you.
Pull me out of this.
I guess you can say I thought I had life all figured out. I had a barbershop, a very successful barbershop that I started when I was like 20 years old. I had an influx of clients who absolutely loved the space and loved what we did and loved the culture that we set for it. I had a steady income and built a really, really strong community around the brand. We had like crazy events that we had, like Cars and Coffee. We did shave-a-thons. We even helped, other barbershops and other businesses out with, their ventures and their like charity events and stuff like that. And I remember sponsoring a soccer team, within the local area, because I thought the guys that played there were cool, and so I thought, we'll sponsor them because they aligned with the brand and it was fun. So yeah, I built something that was like really cool, and like it made me think that this is cool. I've got it all figured out. I'm 25, or at the time I was early 20s, and building this empire per se. But towards the end of it, things started feeling a little bit off, right? Like I began to realize that what I had built looked really good from the outside. The big warehouse space with the cool lighting, the cool branding, big social media presence and stuff like that, or within the span that we had the business, or I had the business, grown it pretty well. But really on the inside, things felt a bit hollow. And I remember there came a moment and there came a point in my career as a barber, because I've been doing it for quite a while, not as long as some of these greats have been doing it, and some of the legends in the space, but doing it long enough. I started when I was 17. The very first move to Australia was my, I wouldn't say first job, but second job, right? I began looking at all these people that have been doing it for eons, for years, and all that sort of stuff, and like saw how they lived and all that sort of stuff. And I even started looking at people locally and that have been doing it for way longer than what I've been doing it. And I started questioning, like, shit, is this it? Is this what I'm going to be doing for the next 5, 10, 15, even 20 years of my life? And just the thought of me doing this forever, day in, day out, the same thing, cutting, doing the same haircuts, having the same conversations, seeing the same people, it was terrifying. And I also thought, 5, 10 years down the line, when I'm married and have kids, and my little kid asks my wife, like, oh, where's dad? And she has to reply, oh, he's out working. He can't tuck you in bed tonight because he's working, cutting someone else's hair. Like, that thought just absolutely destroyed me. And it terrified me to think that that's the direction that I was heading in. So a lot of questions started creeping in, and a lot of things, came up for me, a lot of feelings and a lot of like, I wouldn't say uncertainty, but I just started questioning where I was going with it. And like I said, it was a really cool space that I developed. It was a really cool brand that I built, and a really cool business that, it was awesome to be a part of, and it was awesome to have this, and it was awesome to have the clients that really looked up to us and really enjoyed being in the space that I had set up, and really enjoyed the culture that we created and the community, that strong community that that I established through the brand. But yeah, just those questions really terrified me, and like it really got me thinking about where I'm heading, for the next few years of my life, especially being so young. I mean, I just turned 25. And yeah, I guess even though I had freedom in theory, like the business was mine, I could do whatever I wanted with it. I could close on a certain day and go do whatever I wanted, or I could open up longer hours, shorter hours. I can cut as many or as little hair as I want. I controlled it. And the reality was that, and for anybody who's in the service industry, you'd understand this, but the reality was that, you had a certain commitment and responsibility to fulfill, especially as the owner of the business. I mean, you had to make sure that, you had enough people coming in to pay rent and enough people to sustain your staff and team members and all that sort of stuff. So there was a lot of responsibility, that kept me there, that kept me behind the chair, that made sure that I was not, stuck behind the chair cutting hair to ensure that these responsibilities and duties and obligations were fulfilled. And that, made sure that these obligations and duties were fulfilled. So the reality was that I had no time. Like, even though freedom was there in theory, I had no time for myself. My body started giving in. I developed this condition in my back where, I'm not going to go into the details of it, but yeah, I developed a condition in my back that was quite excruciating and uncomfortable. Like, my feet were constantly, in pain. So I had to get specialized shoes for that. My hands were always cut up and scarred, and mentally I was just checked out because I was constantly giving of myself on a daily basis, whether it was behind the chair or in the office, or for my team members and stuff like that. I was constantly ensuring that things were moving and that there was momentum and that things were growing. That when it came to my loved ones and the people who love me and who I love, I had nothing more to give. When Sky, my girlfriend, and I would hang out, I was just not there. I was mentally checked out and I was spaced out. Either that, or I was just constantly thinking about business or the next move or what I need to be doing in order to make sure that I make ends meet this month, or in order to make sure that, my team member is booked up and that clients are happy and all that sort of stuff. So again, while the freedom was there in theory, me being the owner of the business, doing whatever I wanted, the reality was that it wasn't there, And I guess that's where the unraveling started to begin, with me questioning these things of where I want to be in the next few years, and questioning, whether I had really established or built a business based around freedom and freedom of choice and freedom of time and all that sort of stuff. And looking back, I hadn't, I had built this business for other people, but not for me. And that was a sobering thought, and one of the biggest pivotal moments in my career, And I guess I also felt stuck in that because I had self-identified as the barber, or the business owner. So I felt trapped in having to fulfill that and having to constantly give that, provide that, and make sure that I live up to this label that not only I put on myself, but that I've allowed other people and that I've allowed society to put on me. And that made me feel even more trapped because now other people see me this way. So now I feel this sense of obligation to live up to what other people sort of saw me as. So it was very daunting. It was very terrifying to think of, like that. And I'm part of this mentoring space and coaching space with Owen and Lee, who are, my mentors of such. And we've got a whole bunch of people in there. And, these things started coming up of self-identifying or over-identifying too much as one thing. And that really hit me hard because that's where I was at and that's what I was feeling. And I guess there was one conversation that came up, and Owen, one of my mentors, he pointed out this is what you're doing. You're over-identifying as one thing, which is making you feel stuck when you have all these other skills and all these other abilities that you have that can make you, well, not make you, but that, you can use to fulfill your dream. However, you're not utilizing that because you don't think, oh, barbers don't do that. So it was a slow process of, I guess this whole journey has been a slow process of shifting as a barber, or identifying as one thing, or over-identifying as one thing, into just being a basic human. Not even basic, just being a human, right? Who's multifaceted and who can do a lot of things. And a lot of that is credited to the people around me who have noticed my skills and talents and abilities and have helped me bring them out. And yeah, I remember, there was a time earlier in the year where Owen and Lee had this Momentum Mastermind that they hosted in Bali. And it was basically a Tony Robbins business mastery event. And, everybody in the coaching space, we got invited to go. And I wasn't even sure at this point whether or not I was going to go. And I guess, yeah, I had raised enough money at that point to be able to go. And so I went, and honestly, that was probably the catalyst of everything unfolding and playing out the way that it did up until this point. Because when I went there, I just met all these incredible people. You see them on the Zoom calls and stuff like that, but actually being around them and actually seeing them, in the flesh, like, it's a bit of a different experience. And hearing the conversation and being part of the energy and all that sort of stuff that they bring to the table, it was just such a wow experience, and it was just so awesome to be around. Never mind the actual business mastery course itself. I think it was like 5 days, a 5-day virtual event, which was also a bit of like a mental challenge, because with the time zone difference and where Tony Robbins was hosting it, I think it was in California or something like that, and we were in Bali, there was like quite a time shift. So we had to pull all-nighters for like 5 days in a row in order to attend this event. And that was like a big mental challenge. Like, how bad do you want to attend this, and how much does this mean to you? And I guess subconsciously realizing that I was trapped in that identity of, I'm just a barber. I really wanted this to break free from that and to shift into other spaces and other opportunities and other ventures, I guess, that fulfilled, or that more aligned with who I was as a person and where I wanted to go in life. Because I guess barbering, it served its course and it served its purpose up to a point, but I think I became overly consumed by that identity.
So yeah, it wasn't until last night when we were in the restaurant, and I was just sitting back in the chair and I was just looking around, and it all hit me at once. I was like, fuck. Everything that I thought I knew about leverage up till this point, or business up until this point, or just making money up until this point, it's just, I wouldn't say wrong, but definitely didn't serve. It's just been challenged.
So yeah, around this time where I started questioning things, I would when I started questioning these things, and when I started searching for answers to where I want to go and what I want to do with my life, a wave of opportunities just like hit me and just came all at once. I mean, I mentioned the Bali trip, and I said that was the catalyst of it. But prior to that, I was introduced to this course which taught me a little bit more about the media space and taught me a little bit more about video content creation and the frameworks around attracting clients and how to design and make packages to sell, and just shifting into the identity of being able to do that, and being introduced to people with the likes of Dan Martell and the teachings of Alex Hormozi and all these great people in the entrepreneurial space, and just having that constantly in the spotlight, it was really cool. So yeah, during this time of everything just unraveling and things shifting, there was just so many opportunities that came into play. And I had started another business on top of the barbershop, while I was doing, there was a time where I was doing two at once. And I stepped into the media space a little bit more and started, putting myself out there as the video guy, because, while I was still stuck in this identity of being a barber and people trying to bring out the skill set out of me, I didn't quite feel like I was the right fit to do it for other businesses. So I did it for the barber shop and, started creating content for the shop and really cool edits and videos promoting the business. And, with the cars and coffee events that we had, I would make little highlight reels on that and show off all the cars that would come. We had really cool cars like McLarens and Lotuses and, really cool GTRs and Supras. And it was cool to do that. But again, because I over-identified as a barber, I didn't have the confidence or the identity or I didn't think that I had the ability to do it for other people. So this course really helped me out to put myself out there, and then stack that on top of the Tony Robbins event that I attended earlier on in the year. I think that was just more evidence and more proof that I can be the person. It's just all in my head, and it's all just how I view myself and how I allow other people to view me. So with that, things started shifting, and I started to refer to myself as a barber less and more of a business owner who happens to know how to cut hair. And I would actually correct people when they're like, oh yeah, so you're a barber. And I'll be like, no, actually I'm just someone who happens to know how to cut hair really well. And people, it took them about, they were taken a bit back by that, and it was quite funny in a way to see their reaction when I corrected them on that. But I think that also led to a lot of shift and identity change within me, and it opened the doors for me to just be like, okay, well, I can do anything that I want. I am multifaceted. I am skilled. I mean, I went to university for digital media, didn't finish the degree, but the skills and the knowledge that I attained from what I had studied, it's still with me. So yeah, I came back from Bali after attending the Tony Robbins event. Actually, before I left, Sky took me to the airport, and I remember we were driving to the airport and it was just quiet in the car, and I looked at her. Obviously she couldn't look at me because she was driving, but I looked at her and I was like, you know what, darling, I think our lives are going to change. And I was probably being very over dramatic at that point, but little did I know that our lives were going to change. I mean, here I am now, right? And she was like, oh, what do you mean? What's going to happen? All that sort of stuff. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know how our lives were going to change. I didn't know what our lives were going to look. Everything was just so up in the air at that point in time. I just didn't know where I was going with it all. And obviously her being my girlfriend, she was, we do life together. So she was part of the equation as well. So I guess she felt a little bit scared in that regard too, But that's all I could say. And yeah, I came home from that, and honestly, after meeting all those really cool people and being exposed to the insights and the knowledge that and wisdom that Tony had to offer during his business mastery course, and also just the chats and the conversations that we had as a group, it really shifted the way that I saw things, and it really shifted my perspective. And coming back to just cutting hair, it was really, really difficult for me. It was really, really, really difficult knowing that, the hours that I spent cutting hair, I could be spending somewhere else building something bigger and something better, something that fulfills not only me as a person, or that not only aligns with me as an individual, but can serve so many more people. And that will allow me to be there 100% present, not just for the people that I'm serving, but for my loved ones, my family, Sky, and those within close proximity to me. I'm able to be there for them, way more present. And so it became really difficult for me to just come back and cut hair and go back to the way things were. So I decided to put a stronger focus on the, Renegade Studio is what it's called. Don't know how long that name will last, but yeah, just a bit of an insight for the future. But yeah, Renegade Studio is what I started, and I put a lot more emphasis on that and a stronger focus on the media creation for other businesses. And with that, I scaled back from cutting hair. I think I was only cutting hair 3 days a week, and I went right back to like a day and a half, you know, a full Friday and half a Saturday. And I guess in that, you know, I still felt a little bit stuck, and like it was kind of like my foot was, you know, foot in one end and the other foot in another industry, and I was like sort of trying to balance the two. And you know, from my experience, if you want to do something, you want to do it properly, you know, you got to go all in, you have to commit. So after a lot of years, or a lot of like, not years, I mean, a lot of discussions and a lot of time thinking about it, you know, I eventually decided that by the end of the year, this year, 2025, I want to retire as a barber, as a hairstylist, or whatever you want to call it, and I won't be cutting hair anymore. And I think that conscious shift and that decision just led to a whole nother, you know, it opened a whole new can of worms of like what's going to happen next, right? So put more emphasis on the media creation and you know, content studio side of things, and you know, really trying to deliver for the clients that I already had, and while trying to attain new clients and stuff like that, and scaled back on the floor while, you know, my team member Blake was running the show downstairs, and I had like a warehouse, right? So the barbershop was downstairs, and upstairs was like my idea of like a studio space. I was gonna have like a cyclorama, some backdrops, like really cool lighting, and I had an office to the side where I did all the admin-y and editing stuff. And I think that feeling of being behind the chair and still spending time cutting hair, like it still stayed with me. Like, you know, I was still doing the long hours at the shop. I was still cutting hair at the point, you know, the Friday, Saturdays, and just cutting hair just really drained me, because what I was doing there, the time that I was spent doing that could still be building something else, and I just didn't feel fulfilled. And while all of this was happening internally and all that sort of stuff, I received a phone call from Owen, and they pretty much knew where I was going with it. They knew that I wanted to retire. They knew that I, you know, him and Lee knew that I was heading into this media space, and they knew that, you know, where I was going in terms of content creation and entering the digital realm and all that sort of stuff. So, and they'd seen some of my work, and they really liked it, and they liked what I did for the shop and all that sort of stuff. And he knew, you know, they knew that I was doing a course with someone else in order to build frameworks and all that sort of stuff. So he rang me up one day. Lee was also on the phone, and he rang me up, or they rang me up, and they were like, look, we know what you want to do. We know where you're heading. This is where we're at. You know, we want to go big. We want to go, you know, to the moon with this, basically. And because of that, we're not going to have time to do the media ourselves. So we're booking you a ticket. You're coming to Bali. You're going to spend a few weeks with us learning the frameworks, the systems behind the scenes and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, you're going to be our media guy. And honestly, I had never thought at that point in my life, it was nothing that I had imagined would ever happen to me. And, you know, being the media director, or I wouldn't even say media director yet, you know, we're still working towards that, but being the media director of a company that I've been a part of since day dot, you know, and I was just taken aback, you know, everything was moving so fast. I don't even know, I didn't have, like, I had a choice, but like, you know, everything happened so quickly that it felt like I didn't have a choice but to do it. And so within a matter of days, I had my bags packed. I had set up some standard operating procedures for Blake to run the shop while I'm away. And I received a phone call on Thursday, and by Sunday I was on my way to Bali. And honestly, that trip was pivotal. It changed the trajectory of the course of my life and everything at that point, you know. I think once I had decided that I'm going, that's when I knew that the shop was going to close. We had already put things in motion. Like, Blake already knew that I was going to go into media creation a bit more, and so we were looking and exploring opportunities of what he needed to do and what we can do for him. Maybe we need to move him on to another shop. And so we had conversations with one of my really good friends, Amy from Moldy Locks, and I sort of set up a job for him there while I was focusing on, building this media empire. And so things were already in motion for me to scale right back for the barbershop. And, I was really only going to serve like a handful of clients, maybe 1 day a week. And anyway, I went to Bali, and Blake was running the shop, and I was getting a bit of behind the scenes, and honestly, the first few days there, I was out of whack. Like I want to say I was overstimulated, but I think I was just like, yo, I'm here, what now, sort of thing, right? What do I do? What am I doing here? Like, I don't even know why I'm here, like, but I'm here. And honestly, my world just changed. My view on things just changed, and the way I thought business and life was completely flipped itself on its head. I remember in that first week that I was there, we went to Ubud. We just rented a nice villa, and we're just for the sake of it, change the scenery and just to film a bit of content. And like honestly, I was sitting there and I was just dazed. I was just like, what is this? Like, what is this life that I've been exposed to? And Owen actually approached me and he was like, bro, are you all right? You seem a bit out of it. And I'm like, yeah, man, I am. Because everything that I thought I knew about business, everything that I thought I knew about life, everything that I thought I knew about everything really just flipped itself on its head, right? And I've just been exposed to this whole new world. I was surrounded by other creatives and other entrepreneurs who are, were living life on their terms, and I didn't even realize that was possible. And I was exposed to a life that I have been craving for so long, and knowing that it was, possible, experiencing it firsthand, just set the ball, like, just got the ball in motion and just got everything happening. And like, it was a little bit overwhelming at first, but the more I, involved myself in it, the more I got amongst it, the more I realized, like, this is what life is meant to be. Like, we come to separate business or work and life, but really, and I'm going to quote Owen here, business and life are much of the same. So really, or your life is your business and your business is your life. So really, you got to mind your own business and mind your own life, you know what I mean? Because it's much of the same. So yeah, being in Bali, it was just incredible. And like I said, everything was just moving so fast, and I didn't want to lose momentum. I already had clients back home that I had to deliver for in terms of content creation and in terms of, giving them their deliverables and what they needed out of the package that I created. But the course that I did, it taught me, I was taught how to attract clients. I was taught how to build systems and frameworks and packages. I could sell those packages and systems to clients, but I wasn't quite taught to deliver at scale, especially the scale that I had created for myself. So basically, I had this massive backlog of clients that I had to fulfill for and deliver for that I didn't know how to. And that led to extreme burnout and severe overwhelm, and I was in this delivery hell of like, okay, I need to get through this. This is all happening while I'm overseas trying to build something with my mentors and, trying to embrace this new life and this change that's happening around me, within me, everywhere, In the back of my head, I'm thinking like, oh shit, I need to deliver for these guys still. So thankfully, I was in Bali, surrounded by all these entrepreneurs and surrounded by all these other content creators who were in a very similar space that I wanted to head into. So coming up with solutions and coming up with a way out of that was really, it was quite easy. And I guess it was just me, again, over-identifying as one thing and only one solution, but like taking a step back and having a look at my situation objectively and having other people look at it like that as well. It just really helped me and opened my eyes to realize how easy this stuff can actually be. So I remember it was actually on my birthday. We were in Uluwatu and Owen and Lee had gone home or come back to Australia at that point. And so Owen thought he would give me a nice little birthday gift, and we would do like a full-on 2 hour long strategy session on what the path forward looks like from here. And so we brainstormed and we strategized ways on how to get out of this delivery hell and crawl my way back out of it, and how the steps that I need to take for the next few months in order to get back to a point of building the media business to where I wanted to be, and to build it from a place of alignment and not overwhelm. And we set some goals in place, we set some steps and all that sort of stuff, and it was really good and gave me this massive clarity.
This is going on record. My name's T-Dog. My name's Damien. I will be known one day. My incredible skill, incredible business, incredible leadership, incredible life. Everybody's gonna want to be with that. They're just gonna be jealous. But I will be known. Signing off. Congrats.
While all this is happening, and while all this, change is happening and all that sort of stuff, and we're coming up with strategies and all that sort of stuff, there was a lot of tension and friction within me. At this point, Blake had already moved on to his new job with Amy, and I had like a core group of clients that I was still gonna, cater for when I get back home. But that created a lot of tension within me. I want to move on, but I've got this thing here holding me back. So that tension and that friction within me forced me to face some really, really hard truths, and forced me to look at myself and at my situation a bit differently. I did not have to be the person who does everything. And to be quite frank, I was that person. I saw myself as the person who had to do everything, who had to do everything right, and who had to carry everything on his shoulders. So I realized that I had to slow down. I made the difficult decision to close the barbershop down completely. I was no longer gonna cut hair one day a week. I was no longer gonna serve or cater to that core group of clients. So I sent an email out saying that this is it. I will no longer be cutting hair, and I'm moving on to something else. I'm moving on to bigger and better things. Not that, I'm just moving on to different things. And I sent out an email, and that was that. And when I got back home, I just started selling everything. I sold all my barber chairs, selling mirrors, still trying to sell a coffee machine, getting someone to take over the lease of the warehouse that I'm in. And, there's still a lot of uncertainty happening at the moment. Currently in some serious financial turmoil and trying to figure things out and all that sort of stuff. But I've also have this awareness and understanding of this is just part of the process, and this is just one cog in the machine that I need to overcome. This is just one obstacle and one challenge that I need to work through. And not to quote any stoicism or authors but Ryan Holiday, he has a whole book around how the obstacle is the way, and this is my obstacle that I'm currently facing. This uncertainty, this time of hardship and all that sort of stuff. I'm okay during this time because I know it's going to be okay. And I guess closing the shop down was the last nail in the coffin for me. And, I didn't close it down from a point of failure, the business was going under or anything like that. Like I said in the beginning, it was a booming business. It was great. It was awesome. Like, I had built something incredible out of it, but I closed it down because it was no longer serving me or where I wanted to go with life. So I don't see it as a loss, and I don't view myself as a failure of any sorts, but this is more of, a shedding of weight so that I can move with intention and so that I can move with speed. And with that space, I realized that I'm not really starting from scratch. I'm building I'm building from experience. I mean, everything that I've learned over the past 5 years, whether it be content creation for the business, whether it be business tactics and business strategies, whether it be client and people interactions, team members, and stuff like that, or whether it be the admin side of things or accounting or whatever it is, all of that stays with me. Like how to attract clients, how to, sell packages and stuff, all of that stays with me, and all of that experience and knowledge stays here. But it's just a matter of what I do with it moving forward. Like I said, I'm not building from scratch, I'm building from experience. So now I'm at the point where, I'm building something new. I'm building a business, a media business that is more strongly aligned with who I am today and the values that I hold today. Not the person I was 5 years ago, or not what society or the people around me think that I should be, but more about who I want to become. And it's just more aligned with where I want to go and what I want to do with my life. And it's difficult, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sit here and preach to you about how I have everything figured out, because I don't, I don't have everything figured out. I'm just taking it one step at a time. And that's probably the scariest part, for me. I feel like a lot of the times I need to have everything laid out in front of me. But if there's anything I learned over these past few weeks, is that nothing is certain and nobody really knows what they're doing in this game of life. So I guess for me, I just need to take it one day at a time and just keep on persisting and keep on showing up. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing moving forward, and obviously I have everybody around me to support me. I have my partner, Sky. She's there along with me. She's honestly my biggest support, and I love her very much for that. She's always been there and she will always be there for me. I have Owen and Lee, my mentors. I have my family, my mum and dad and my sister, who are cheering me on from the sidelines, and I have everybody else. I have you guys watching me, and I'm honestly grateful for that. I'm honestly grateful for the relationships that I've built over the years, where I can have people with me on this journey, and that I can serve other people along this journey as well. And again, like I said, I'm not claiming to have it all figured out, and I'm not claiming to be this business guru or this content guru or anything like that. But I know that it's about showing up and it's about consistency. So I'm building something that aligns with who I am, and I'm building something that aligns with who I want to be, and from a place of being able to serve and be present for those that I serve and for those that I love. So with that being said, it's safe to say that this season is not about scaling or hitting certain KPIs or growing my business to 10x or whatever it is. It's about building something from a place of alignment, and it's about choosing, depth over noise. And if you're currently in a season of rebuilding as well, whether it's rebuilding your business, your identity, or just your purpose, just know that you are not alone. I'm busy documenting everything throughout the mess, not just sharing any highlights and stuff like that. And if you want to join me in this journey, if you want to support me, or if you need some support yourself, just hit that subscribe button and we'll figure this out together.